when Alastair's contract expires at the end of 22, we will not be reappointing him. Hopefully, Alastair and Sam will work together, which will continue to add to Sam's experience and then be ready to take over when Alastair departs at the end of next season.
There was a mediation session held at the Hawthorn Football Club. During that meeting, it became clear that Sam Mitchell would rather have clean air.
The sceptics were saying, oh, well, he'll move straight away. No, that's the in sickness or in health for me. I'm going to continue on and do this role until the end of next year. I'm going to step aside from coaching the Hawthorn Footy Club at the end of this year. We've come to the realisation that this footy club needed some fresh air from 2022 onwards.
They'll be competitive next year, but I still wouldn't really want their list for anything compared to the rest of the 17 teams. I just think they're putting him in a really difficult position. I hope he can coach.
And so it begins for Sam Mitchell. It begins, as it's often did for him as a player, as a winner.
Plenty of ups and downs since then. A long time ago, it feels like Sam Mitchell joins us tonight on Footy Classified. Welcome. There's a perception that it's a poison chalice taking over from a long-term coach in senior footy. Has it proved anything like that for you so far? And how have you found the experience?
No, that was a nice little trip down memory lane. Thanks for that, guys. But really, it's what I expected it to be. A lot of it has been, working with players, looking at building a new direction, building a strong culture, and trying to get players invested in the direction that you're going. Having an uncomfortable patience about the direction that you head, and making sure our players are passionate and are pushing the standards on which we need to play. I think I heard you mention before that Melbourne had a ruthless edge about them, and it's just part of their DNA now. But they didn't build that overnight, and we're going to build a premiership team, but that's not going to happen overnight either. So we're working every day towards that. We'll
get to Clarko, because we'll have to ask you that question at some stage through the course of the interview. But Kane mentioned the list when you took over. That was a reasonably well-held view that the list wasn't in great shape. What was your assessment of it, and has that changed since you took on the job?
I mean, the list as a whole has changed from those comments. Obviously, we've been through one draft already, and we've brought in a really good cohort of young players. We've seen a lot of opportunities for a lot of players this year. We've really moved the ledger with some players, making them closer to AFL standard, good AFL standard, potentially elite AFL standard players. So the emergence of a handful of guys who are getting some more recognition, guys like Dylan Moore, who we thought we might see that. I thought CJ's start to the season, Mitch Lewis has been able to take steps in the right direction. And then we're getting some games into some of the young guys as well. So we don't know how far away we are. We know that our best is competitive against the best, and we know when we have lapses in effort, as Kane mentioned before, around no game plan will work without effort. And when we produce subpar effort, we're not going to compete with too many teams.
How involved do you get in list management? Because it's going to be the decisions that are made there are going to determine how successful you are.
It's a great question. Certainly, I don't have the final say. Mark McKenzie, we've got a really clear process around list management. Certainly have some influence around watching the players, what type of players we need. There's easy to do the X's and O's and a centre-half forward or a centre-half back. That's an easy discussion, really, around personality profiles, what type of psychology of players we need. I was really big this year, for instance, around really strong character traits. So we brought in one of the first sort of ticks that you had to get to go any further in our recruiting was really strong character, and all the guys we brought in have produced that. And what that's done is it's created a really self-driven environment amongst that young group, which is one of the things that
Had that been an issue? Character?
I wouldn't have said it. No, I don't think it had been an issue, but it had been floating along, I would say. I think some of the young guys, we'd been through this era of everything being done for you, and then we went through the COVID period and a lot of resources being drawn away and players having to be more self-sufficient, and we hadn't done that as well as I thought was possible. And I think in this new post-COVID world, I thought the self-driven players and athletes, and I mean Jai Newcombe is probably our best example, where he's a kid from Poowong who bought himself a gym during COVID, and then he goes and produces football, and he doesn't need a lot of coaching, to be honest. He just sort of put him out there, give him some direction, and away he goes. And the more players that we can produce who are self-driven, the stronger we'll be, and more importantly, the quicker we'll get there.
Sam, not many guys go on and coach with former teammates. So how big a challenge was that, actually going from teammate to coach? And was it harder with some players who maybe felt Clarkson men and and seeing you as a mate becoming their coach?
No, well, there wasn't any of the Clarkson man, Mitchell man. We didn't have that element. I thought Ben McAvoy in particular was really strong with the players and did a great job of bringing everyone along. I was really open with them. We had a lot of just open table. Let's have a discussion about how do you feel? This is awkward, and you got one coach who coached us all to premierships, and now he's going out and I'm coming in. How do we feel about it? How do we want this to look? How do we want to execute some...
How confronting was some of the responses you got?
Yeah, I mean, they weren't, there was some of it. I mean, what I push quite heavily now as a coach is around the stronger your relationship with each other, the quicker you can make each other better. So if you think to the harshest things you've ever said to people in your life, usually they're your most loved people because they can handle that, and your relationship is robust enough to have really strong conversation. And what I wanted to do was be able to create that in a really, sounds corny to say it on TV, but in a really loving way, so that then we could give each other pretty strong feedback when we needed to. And their way of saying, well, when you were a player, you were pretty nasty sometimes, and then as a coach, you're asking us to be loving. Getting them to understand how that has evolved was an important part of that process.
Sam, there's a different article written every day, it seems, about your former coach. What's your current relationship with Clarko like?
Yeah, we're pretty good. We send some messages when we see the hot air balloons up in the sky. It means it's going to be a good day. It's one of those little quirks we had as a player and coach relationship. So whenever I see the hot air balloons, I shoot him a text or a photo of the hot air balloons and say good day today, and he usually sends back something. So there's a little bit happening there. I never know where he is. He's always somewhere else.
So you were in the rare position where you got to see him so close and work with him so closely. When he stopped coaching, did he seem like a guy to you that you thought, yep, he'll coach again? Or did you think he actually might just leave it there?
I didn't see him too much in that initial... I had hands full trying to do what I needed to do around Hawthorn at the time, so I didn't see him in person too often in that period. But I think he's got a passion for the game. You look at how he's taken to the Tasmania stuff. You look at how he takes to grassroots footy. I think he's got a passion for the game and for the sport, and he's been a fantastic coach. I've got 4 premierships at home that I've got him to be thankful for helping to create that. So whether he coaches next year or the year after, or he decides it's not for him, I'm sure it's going to be the ball in his court. But I'd expect that he's probably got that exact decision right in front of him now.
Sam, you just watched off the top of the show the Dyson Heppel debate and what I had to say and his response. How would you feel as a coach if a player gave away a statement free kick? If you felt your team was being walked all over and you thought a player just wanted to change the course of the game somehow, how do you feel about that as a coach?
It's interesting. I hadn't thought about it before. I guess if it was a deliberate, I think this is a good decision and it was well thought through and well intended, then I'd be happy for a player to make that decision, to say we need to make a stand here. But if it was undisciplined, I recognise what Dyson said was that we don't want to have undiscipline and give away a 50 and a free kick, because if it was just a loose, not one that was well thought through, then that wouldn't be good either. But I think if a player said, nah, I saw something and I thought we needed to make a stand, then I would back them in that decision.
It looks like you're respectfully phasing players out or towards the end. You had a robust chat with many in the trade period last year about whether some of them wanted to find different homes or otherwise, and we've seen Shields dropped a couple of times or used as a medi sub. I think Mitchell was left out on the weekend. I think he might have been ill, you said on the broadcast. And then Bruce, who's playing good footy, but you've had that chat with previously. How difficult is that to have those discussions with those players and to manage that while you bring the next era through?
Yeah, I think every football club, it wouldn't even be AFL. I think if you go back to your local football club, I think one of the great gripes of players would be the lack of transparency around selection. And so basically what we did at the start of the season is we said, how do you want selection to look? How do you want to hear that you're either in or out of the team? How do you want that to be portrayed? Because it's not going to change our decision making as a match committee. But what we will do is, however you would like to hear about it, that's what we'll give you. And so we have a selection meeting every week at 3:35. I always know that because around 3, that's when I walk around like the Grim Reaper, giving everyone bad news. But that's how the players wanted it. So they would get a heads up before going into the selection meeting, and then we would do the team and go through the last prep a couple of days before the game. And every conversation with a player is different. Some of them are, rapt to have had an opportunity and they're disappointed to move out, and some some are recognising that they're moving closer to the end. But you have a lot of care for every player, and there's no player on our list who is unavailable for selection for any other time. Most of those guys are going to play at some stage.
Just to clarify, Mitchell, was he left out through illness or through selection on the weekend?
So what we've been doing with our midfield mix is trying to figure out the best way to get them playing at their best. And Tommy had been sick the week before, hadn't come into the club for the first 2 or 3 days of it again, and hadn't been in great form. And it was just a great time, I thought, to give him a circuit breaker. Let's just have a week off. Let's get your body right, and let's come in full of energy into the Brisbane game. So he'll definitely play this week. He'll start in the centre, and that week has broken his cycle, his energy, and we had some meetings today, and his vibrancy around the group after 7 or 8 or 9 games straight was really strong. So I'm hoping that what we get is a spike in performance.
Sam, when will you catch up next with Cyril Rioli?
Well, I'm not sure. Hopefully in a couple of weeks. We play in Darwin.
Yep.
So I hope then. We certainly want to have an impact up there. The club's been working up in Catherine, 3 hours out of Darwin for a long period of time, and we've got a group going a little bit early, and then a few of us are staying back after the game to try and embed ourselves in the community up there, and we're looking to do some things in the future. And I hope he will be part of that. He's a premiership teammate. I share some of my great memories as a footballer with Cyril, and like going to any place where one of your ex-teammates and ex-premiership teammates lives, you try to catch up with them. Now, if he wants to do that or not, I know I've sent him some messages before, which you've reported on here. So I've sent him a message again. I haven't heard from him as yet. We've got a couple of weeks, and hopefully it'd be great if we could catch up. But if not, we're still going to be very committed to what we're doing up there, and I do hope he'll be a part of it.